How are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm not too bad. It's one of those choppy days, but it's okay.
No, it's like it tends to come like good day, bad day, good day, bad day, very much in that pattern. I think like so.
Yeah.
Yesterday was a good day. I think yesterday was a good day. Today will probably be a little bit of a bad day, but I think this might set me off on a good note,
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah.
Veronica.
And thanks so much for doing this.
Not at all. Thank you for having me, and thanks to Fatima for coming as well to see the show. I really appreciated it. So,
And they really enjoyed it.
okay, good. I'm glad.
I'm gonna be just looking at me notes, Sean, because I don't have a printer. What was I gonna say? So yeah, how are you managing all of this is the first question. How are you minding yourself?
Um, Going on my 2 km walk.
You stay safe, stay inside.
Yeah, like just going on the walks, and I'm watching, like I'm trying to watch a load of comedy series, which I don't really ever do. I never watch comedies. Trying to listen to pop music, like trying to just take space for myself as much as I can and not panic, really. But like it comes and goes, it comes in waves, like you know what I mean. I was kind of really the kind of concerns I have at the moment, they're very like insignificant in the broader scheme of the problem that we're in. Like I wanted to go on a holiday, like that was my big drama, like when this all kicked off. Like I couldn't go on a holiday anymore. But like that's okay, you know, as long as everyone's healthy, I just have to stay in. Like I'm in my boyhood bedroom, like so I'm very much in space at the moment. Like yeah,
Ah,
energetically.
that's lovely. That's lovely. What was I going to say? So, I just wanted to start a conversation with you about your work, and I know you met some of the Fatima Groups United Culture Club when they came to see Restoration,
Yeah.
and as we said, they enjoyed it. So this show is inherently about community, Sean, and like it's actually set in a youth centre. So in this case, about restorative practice, and I know we're in the attic together. So when you were telling me about that whole process of research, it was really fascinating. So maybe we'll start with a bit of that.
Yeah, so I mean, I suppose I always thought that would be very interesting to make a piece that looked at youth work and youth services in Dublin, just because I'm from the inner city, so I know of a number of organisations, and I've kind of had like different engagements with them myself over the years, just through drama facilitation and stuff like that. But my sister also, like, she works in social care, and she would have kind of come up through youth work. Um, so a lot of the research in the kind of early days of the show's genesis was like just conversation with her and talking about the job and talking about the dynamics and understanding it. And then at the time, I was actually working with Aidan Howard and Vic McAneil in the Abbey, and I was looking at a show actually. I was looking at they commissioned me to write a work that was actually going to be about whistleblowing in the guards, and this is before everything had kind of kicked off with that whole shebang. And I was looking at that for ages, and I was interviewing loads of guards, and one of the guards had put me on to restorative practice and was like, there's this thing that we're doing now with young people, like in the community, and like I think it's really useful, and you should have a think about it. Like it's a really interesting way of approaching justice and reform and all that kind of stuff. So he put me wide to it, and then when I shifted gear and started focusing in on the youth, on the world of the youth service instead of the kind of wider world of the community and the guards and all that kind of stuff, and I was starting kind of really funneling in. Restorative practice was like on the walls in the youth services that I'd go to, like they'd have the kind of questions of restorative practice, and it was already a big part of their culture and a big part of a developing culture, I suppose, where they were interested in those processes and how they can resolve conflict in those spaces. So that basically what I was doing really before I started writing was just interviewing youth workers, going to youth services, but because the show isn't a documentary piece like the other work that I do, really, I just had to be writing for ages, like, you know what I mean? And I have a good friend called Owen Cleary, who used to work in youth work as well. He's now in a secondary school, but I would have like kind of troubleshooted a lot of the kind of narrative ideas of him, and he came to like a reading before, like a few years back. So I was kind of just always trying to connect it with the real world and figure out, is what I'm doing kind of is it does it seem like it chimes with the reality of the situation, basically? So that was kind of the process for years.
Yeah.
I know I took a long time away from the show, actually, from that play. Like, that play was is in process for yonks and yonks and yonks, like 5 years or something. Like, it took me ages to get that play on.
Wow.
And so I left it for a time. I wasn't working on it like every day for 5 years, but I left it for a time, and then came back to it in, say, 2019. Yeah, in 2019. And that was the show that you saw then in January. Was it January? Was it in January? Yeah.
I think it was it January? Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. Late January, was it?
Yeah, it was. It was late January, because this is the longest year ever, as we know.
Yeah, it feels like 10 years.
Yeah, 6 years ago, that feels like, oh my God. Yeah, but yeah, that's how we got there.
Shaun, you've touched on this a little bit already, but what is it that inspires you to make work about the community, or with community as its priority, I suppose?
Yeah, I suppose, like, for me, like obviously, like, I'm a person that cares a lot about relationships, and like, I put a lot of time into the relationships that I have in my own life. And so working with communities and building relationships as part of an artistic process is always very satisfying for me. Do you know what I mean? But also, I think ultimately, like, sometimes it's because, like, I feel close enough to a subject that I have access to it. Like with something like restoration, I felt like I was close enough to it that I could get in there and it would be comfortable for everybody. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it would feel warranted for me to be making a work about youth work. But also, one of the kind of primary impulses would be that, like, I'm learning about stuff that I probably don't know about within the community. Do you know what I mean? So I didn't, although I had some understanding of youth services, like, I didn't understand them as fully as I did before I started doing the project. Do you know what I mean? And the same with all my other work. Like, you end up kind of, I always feel like with each show, it's like you're doing a thesis or something, or you're doing a bloody, like, MPhil, and, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're understanding something in greater detail. So that's kind of, it's always about educating myself a little bit, like, and understanding things a little bit better, and also then having fun and making art and building those relationships, all that stuff.
And meeting people, yeah.
Meeting people.
Hanging out.
Getting out of the house, Veronica, like, that's really
the fourth show, I think I saw one of your youth theatre shows before that, but I think the fourth show I saw of yours was I'm a Homeboard, It's Very Hard. I just think that's a real funny title at the moment. And I think I saw it in development in Project Brand New, in Project as well. Will you tell us about that show, why you made it, what was going on for you at the time, and maybe a bit about the form as well?
Yeah, so I'd just, at that point, how old was I then? Like maybe 21 and 21. And it was a time of, like, a lot of kind of DIY culture and stuff in Temple Bar, and, like, a lot of young people doing stuff, and there was the exchange, and there was, like, things like Theatre Machine, like festivals that were kind of very much about young artists and young voices kind of taking hold and taking shape, because there was, like, no money in the city, basically, really. But at the same time as that no money happening and that, like, DIY culture thing happening, there was also, like, a big mass exodus, obviously, of young people, and a lot of people who were just leaving college and stuff were going to Australia or going to the UK or going to New York. And I remember I was just approaching leaving college when we started developing the show, and I remember just thinking that it was such a shame, because, like, you have an opportunity to kind of get to know the city properly when you're outside of formal education, like, you know what I mean? Like, you have a chance to kind of actually maybe live in Dublin outside of going to school or going to college and all that stuff. And me and the company I was working with, it was the first time I worked with talking shops, so Una Murphy, Ashland Bourne, Lisa Walsh, we were all kind of in the same space where we were trying to stay in the city, but it felt like everybody else was leaving. So the show kind of became like almost like a kind of call for people to interrogate whether or not they actually have to go. And it was kind of about us saying, we're going to stay here and we want you to stay here with us as well. It was kind of sentimental. Now when I look back on it, I'm like, oh, it was very sweet, that show. But formally, it was kind of like, it's hard to describe formally. It was very much in the theatre, and it was us there in the theatre. And it was kind of like a protest / going away party / like we riffed on a load of different pop cultural moments at the time, and it was a bit of crack, you know. But when I look back on that show, it's funny, we don't know where the script is. Like, we can't find a digital copy of that script anywhere. Like, we can't find a soft copy. And the other day, I was like looking through my room, and I found like a printed older draft of Homeboard, and I was like reading through it, like cringing. I was like, oh my god, what was that? I can't believe we did it, like, because we did it like, that was like yours kind of saying, I'd done shows before, but it was definitely like my professional debut, in the sense that it was my first show at project, like my first proper run at project. And I wish, maybe, like, now looking back, I think it was good for the time, you know what I mean? Like, I had a I just hate on it.
Resonant, Shaun, because it was such a key thing that was happening to your generation at that time, and it was so different than the 80s version when people left, and the 70s, and it was so, yeah, it was really moving. Like, it was really moving.
Yeah, I think it was good, but I do think, yeah, like you said, like, we were massively lucky, and that kind of comes to Una, because it was Una's idea, like, to do a show about people leaving, and like, I think we just were like, it's like one of those things where, like, you're like, oh my god, that's the idea, and it's a big one, and no one's thought to do it yet, because like it was happening, like, people were literally packing their bags and going, you know what I mean? So yeah, we were on the money, I'd say. I will say that we were on the money.
So between making Homeboard and Restoration, you've made like loads of other shows. What else have you made there? Tell us about that.
So I have kind of two strands to the work. Like, I've got like the kind of like docu stuff, which is like Homeboard, and say pieces like Death of the Tradesman, which was a look at unemployment through the lens of like my parents, basically. So my dad's carpet fitter, and I worked with Lauren Larkin, and her dad was a tiler, and it was very much about their generation, but our experience of their generation, pretty much. So we were kind of like mixing Salesman by Arthur Miller with our own stories, and we were kind of performing as our parents, but also in a kind of docu, one foot in, one foot out kind of way. So that was a show that came pretty close after Homeboard. Then that's in the documentary kind of spectrum, and then the other work that I do would be like stuff like the Waste Ground Party, which was how I started a relationship with the Abbey, and that was a play, like a narrative piece, very like Restoration. I think Restoration and the Waste Ground Party are very connected, like, in terms of, in my mind, it's the same community, like, it's the same area. The youth services serve in that same area, that kind of thing. So the Waste Ground Party, Death of the Tradesman, I did a big piece called Rapids a couple of years ago, which was about HIV disclosure. So it was looking at the experiences of the HIV community in Ireland, and their experiences telling other people about their HIV, and the kind of ramifications of that sometimes, and the good and the bad in that. And I made that with an old boyfriend of mine called Robbie Lawler. What else have I done? Restoration, and I've been making films as well. Yeah, so I've been working with the ARC for the last few years, and we've made 2 short films together. The first was in collaboration with the Ringsend community, and then the second piece was with my primary and secondary school, which is Closterware, which was in the Parnell Square, the old kind of derelict school building on Parnell Square. So I made a piece with all them as well. So yeah, I just try and keep going, but the work kind of always straddles it. The research is always the same for both projects, but there's the more narrative work, and there's the more kind of docu-theatre type work as well.
And so the process is within a similar kind of vein, but different for each project?
I always have that kind of like outreach element around all of the work. So I'm always meeting with people, and like, I'll always be doing workshops, and I'll always be trying to understand the subject through engagement with people who actually have lived experience in the world that I'm looking at. But formally, then it gets to a point where there's a diversion, in the sense that with Restoration and the Waste Ground Party, I have to just draft a play, and that takes a long time, and that's me kind of working on my own quite a lot, trying to figure that out. And then with something like Rapids or Death of the Tradesman, the Tradesman is very like a play in a lot of ways, but like, I would bring kind of scrappier ideas to the room, and I'd kind of live draft with people, and I'd edit text, and I'd bring in bad scenes and good scenes, and I'd be a little bit more, that work is way more collaborative, I would say, actually. Like, there's more engagement with designers and with other performers, and I write with people in mind and that kind of work. Do you know what I mean? Like if I know who I'm working with, it's easy for me to go, yeah, well, okay, Lauren can do that and she can do this, and I can kind of build a show around somebody, like, whereas with the other work it's just a little bit different. Am I even answering the question there? What was the question?
Oh yeah, you did. You were talking about your work, your process. Yeah, we combined two of the questions. Yeah. You have a kind of a favourite experience of your work being presented?
Hard question, because I hate presenting shows. Anyone who knows me knows. I don't really like putting shows on. There's always a great moment in every project where it's usually in the moment. It's usually on like maybe the second or third preview, or like the opening night, where like before reviews or whatever, where you're like, and he's all over each other again and everything's forgotten. That moment, like post-labor, basically, where everyone's like, let's do it again, let's all work together again next time. Like, I love that little moment, that little window of time that happens.
Yeah.
But it happens with every project. But with Rapids, when we did the tour of Rapids, it was cool because the first time we did it was in Theatre Festival, and when you're doing a show as part of a festival, the show can kind of come and go in a lot of ways. Like, it can be looked over, actually. And I do think the first time that we did Rapids, I think it kind of was looked over a little bit. So then when we did it again the second time, it really got like people kind of started tuning into the politics of it in a way that was more profound, and there was a lot more opportunity for the community, I think, actually, the second time that we did the show.
Yeah.
So my favourite kind of moment from a show process would have to be, and it sounds a bit like glam or whatever, but like when we did the Rapids tour, when Robbie and I went on the Late Late.
Yeah.
Because like it was such a cool experience for him, and like his mom was in the audience, and it was a huge moment for the HIV community. It was a huge moment for the show. So it was a huge moment for everybody at the table. Like, it was like the community were like, this is huge. The theatre company was like, this is huge. Do you know what I mean? Like, we were all like, this is deadly for everybody.
Yeah.
So it was one of those moments where like I felt like everybody got to be at the table and enjoy the fruits of the labour. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Because it was such a big platform. So that was pretty cool.
That's heavy.
I
I saw it in Theatre Festival, and then I saw it on tour in the Town Hall Galway, I think it was. And there was community, I don't know if it was the same in every venue, but there was community, HIV community members in the theatre meeting people before the show, after the show. There was post-show discussions and everything. It felt like really an engaged kind of, the show was the point. Not that the show, I loved the show as well, but it was like a conversation starter, I suppose.
And that's the thing, I had way more space, just because, like, say for example, like, that's the thing, the benefit of doing it outside of the festival at that time was that, like, the space was ours before and after the show. Whereas when you're doing a show in a festival, you have to kind of get out, because the next show is probably getting in, or, you know, any kind of thing can be happening. There can be any number of things happening around that week.
Yeah.
So yeah, we could really interrogate our outreach, and we could really like bring people in a way that was meaningful and over time. And yeah, every venue that we went to across that tour had, every show had a post show, and every venue had somebody from the community, from the local community, be it like the sexual health service or ACT UP, or like there was always a presence.
Yeah.
Which just made the show feel really worthwhile, because it was hard. Like touring in Ireland it's tricky. Like you don't always have great houses and coffee. Sorry, you don't always have great. You don't always have amazing houses, and like you don't always have the most tech time, and it can be very stressful. But then actually afterwards, it was always very worthwhile because of that work, and that was Ashlyn from Talking Shop. She held all that stuff, so very grateful.
Yeah. And that's who you made Making a Mark with as well last year.
Yeah. Oh my God, Making a Mark. I can't believe I forgot Making a Mark. Yeah, Making a Mark. That was the last Talking Shop show we did. And I kind of think our best show, actually. Yeah, I think Making a Mark is a brilliant piece. It's a piece about Mark's life, but it's also about Ashlyn and Mark's friendship. But Mark is an actor with Down syndrome. And it's kind of just about his experience with ambition and with grief, and we're growing as a person. It's kind of reflective of his story, because the story is really interesting. Like, he's been in the Special Olympics, and he's achieved a lot, you know what I mean, and he's hilarious. So like he's a dream to work with. So we're hoping to tour that show next year.
Brilliant.
When this all ends, please God, like.
Yeah. I really hope that show tours, because again, like, it's just one of those real special experiences in a theatre. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good piece. Yeah, I'm very proud of it. Yeah, I am.
And
Thank
they
you.
were on the Tommy Tiernan. That was great.
And they did the Tommy Tiernan, yeah, exactly. And that was amazing because I
Yeah.
went to see them record that as well. And like, it's funny because like you get a real insight. Like I was in the green room and I could see the interview was a lot longer than what you see on television.
Okay.
So like, it's just amazing, like seeing Mark and Ashlyn like navigate that space with like Tommy Tiernan and then like Hosier's on before and like just fucking gas, you know that way. But it's been great the last few years, like with Rapids and with Making a Mark, like the work has started to really like garner like a lot of support from platforms like that, you know what I mean? And that's been true kind of, I think, just years of going out to RT, years of going on the radio, years of like all that work then does eventually begin to kind of reap a dividend, because the researchers from like a radio show might move up to the Late Late or to the Tommy Tiernan show, and they'll remember you since that time that you came out doing a different project years ago, you know. So yeah, great.
It also speaks to the relevancy, I suppose, of the work you make, that it connects with so many different people. Like, yeah,
and it's been interesting, like, because that's the thing, like I can, that's the only time I think that I do have a lot of ego is when we're talking to like press, because I can always be a bit like, okay, I actually have a scoop for you. And I think that's because of my training in journalism. Do you know what I mean? I'm a bit like, this is actually a news story. It's not just a show. Like, you know, it's very much happening now. But I think that kind of comes from, like, I was very pushy about the Late Late Show. Like, I was like, this is our time now. Like, they need to put us on the Late Late Show. Like, they missed the last time, but this is the opportunity. And I think if you have that about your work, it really helps. Because it can be hard to sell theatre to these platforms, like, because they're a bit like, and you know what I mean? They can be a little bit like TV and film. Like, it's a different fucking space.
Yeah. So Shaun, what inspires you in any way, like around you, music, other theatre, dance, whatever? What inspires you on a day-to-day basis?
What inspires me? I always find this question really hard because I struggle with being like, lengths of period of time where I'm like, I've no inspiration, you know that way, like. But what, like, I would say that I find music very helpful. Like, as in, if I'm playing some music, and it's not the kind of music that I would listen to casually, but like if I'm playing music, I tend to be able to like relax, like my shoulders will come down a little bit, and then I might be able to kind of get an idea or write something that I wasn't able to write previously. So music is definitely something that I'm trying to use like medicinally now for my creativity. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, okay, I need to like listen to some music for a while, and then maybe that would unlock something. But in terms of like direct inspiration, I think really it is like the news, like, and what's going on in the world, like, you know what I mean? I think it is that. Like, I don't think my references aren't always creative. Like, they're more like, you know, I'll know of a certain place, or I'll know of something that happened in the area where I'm from, or a conversation that I might have with my mum or my dad or something could then manifest into a project. And I try to like respond actively to what's happening in the kind of like I'm trying to do this more now, like I'm trying to respond more actively to what opportunities are there in the world, and then being like, okay, let that limit almost inspire me. Do you know what I mean? Like if there's a certain thing happening, what can I do in that space, and who can I bring into it? And do you know what I mean? So I know it's not, people would probably love me to go like, oh, this company or that company, but I don't really. You know what I mean? I find it hard to, like, because I watch so much stuff as well, like, and sometimes I find it hard to be inspired by other art, because like I tend not to watch it anymore, which is horrible. And I'm trying to get back to a place where I do watch it like a regular punter now, but I don't feel like I watch stuff in that kind of like, I'm not always open to being inspired by art, which is terrible.
I know,
You
it's
know what
very
I
hard
mean?
to turn that kind of dramaturgical voice off in the head, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm always on when I'm watching stuff, which is why I'm watching all the comedy stuff, because I don't give a shit, like, and I will just sit back and laugh, you know what I mean? And I'll be like, yeah, that's gas, that's funny, like, I won't be caring about how it's shot or what's happening or where's the symbolism or where's that or what was the process behind this or like
Yeah,
I can just oh no, they're trying to make me laugh. Okay, did they achieve that? Yeah, they did.
very simple. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Anton, this is a bit of an imaginary question, right? But
Right.
say that you were going to make a show with Fatima Groups United, like with the cultural club or with one of the other, maybe their dance group or their theatre group or one of their groups. What do you imagine that might be like? Like even in terms of starting, maybe.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this, and I don't know a massive amount about Fatima, but what I do know is that, or what it sticks in my mind about Fatima, because whenever I'm there, I've been going to, like, say, I had a friend who lived in the area for a while, and she was in like one of like these like gorgeous apartments, like, do you know what I mean? There's like loads of new apartments on the Lewis stop. So, but I know that in like those apartments look like it kind of looks like you're in the CHQ or something, but you're not. You're in Fatima. Do you know what I mean? Like it looks like you're
Yeah.
quite a sterile feeling, that block. But I know there's like social housing and stuff in that. I think some of the housing in that is social housing, and
Yeah.
there's people who were in the community for years in this new structure, I suppose. So I probably want to talk to people about that and talk about kind of just the building on the area and, you know, how the space works now in this new way. I know it's old school, like I know those apartments are probably there 10 years, but I always just find it so funny because it doesn't chime with me. It still doesn't feel like it's just very grey, you know what I mean? Like, and then when you move further back, you get into kind of more the houses, the things that you'd associate with the area a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I'd maybe like to talk, I'd start a conversation just about the geographical space. I try to just actually figure out what the story is in Fatima. Do you know what I mean? Like I'd probably just be like, what's the story here?
Yeah.
Here's an impression I have. What's the actual story? You know what I mean? And then see what the crack is.
Okay, I love it. I look forward to that in the future.
Yeah,
What was I going to say? So, what gives you hope?
God, what gives me hope? So what's giving me hope at the moment? I'm hopeful by the like prospect of like immediate change that has like been introduced to our like way of going about business that we probably didn't think was possible before. So that gives me a little bit of hope. The fact that actually you could just wake up tomorrow and decide to live life a very different way. You know what I mean? And I think it's very interesting to kind of think that actually maybe these massive shifts in our behavior doesn't need to be because we might die. Do you know what I mean? It could be because we choose to do something a bit different. That gives me a bit of hope because I think that actually after this is going to be a phasing back in period where we're starting to live life and go back to the way life was, and there's an opportunity there for us to actually really be like, wait a minute, before we do that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
before we step back in, is anything different? So that gives me a bit of hope, I suppose. Just that, like the massive shift in how people are behaving at the moment, even though it's very intimidating and very scary and very like anxiety inducing in a lot of ways, and you can't leave your house.
Yeah.
Scary, like it's pretty. It's people power. Do you know what I mean? Like, which is really cool.
Really cool. Yeah. And there's a huge moment, isn't there, before we step back into the old ways to look at the bigger picture and go, well, what was working and what really wasn't, like, and see it from everyone's point of view. Yeah.
There was something like I'm totally like I'm not even going to make sense. Like this is like snapshots of things I'm overhearing on the news, but like there was something about the countries like all agreeing, like something to do with the recession that's about to happen. Like, and there was like this prospect of everybody agreeing to just. I felt like what they were saying, but maybe I'm wrong. But like I felt like what was being proposed was if everybody agrees that it doesn't count, we could act like it doesn't count. Like there was a way of slowing it down or something. Like an agreement between all the countries that if we all enter in, but like there was one country that's like Germany basically that pays more than other people, that they think Germany won't do it. But I was like, God, it's so funny just to imagine like all these powers going, let's all just agree that didn't happen. Like, Do you know what I mean? Or
and start afresh.
I'm like, yeah, I'm like, that's so cool. Like,
Yeah.
let's do that.
I like it. And what brings you joy, Shaun?
Good relationships with people. What brings me joy? Kids. Yeah, kids, like young people bring me joy. Like kids are great. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I love that age around 9 to 12 where they're not so bored, and it's like usually a moment where they've stopped being like anxious kids and they have a little like window where they're having a bit of crack before they become a teenager.
Yeah.
Love hanging out with them. That's a good little. So yeah, kids and good relationships and chats and walks, and that's what brings me joy. Pop music, little mix.
Pop music, yay. And what message would you like to give to Fatima Groups United during this time?
God, what messages? What would I say? I would say have a shower every day. Really simple things, like, you know what I mean? During this time of like disruption and like, I'm trying to figure out little ways that I can give myself structure and like I'm trying to do the whole self-care thing basically, like. And I would also advise anyone, even though it's so hard, I would just be like, put structure in your day, get dressed properly every day. You know what I mean? Like, wash your hair as much as you need to, like, do things that'll make yourself feel okay. But also take this time for what it is. And don't put yourself under the pressure. Well, I know this is really giving myself advice live, like, because I don't take this advice. But don't put yourself under the pressure to exist the way you normally would, because we're in a very rare experience. Yeah. And I think this time is most stressful when you try to recreate regular life. Like when you're like, okay, now I'm going to get up and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I'm going to, like, when you try and do too much of that stuff, I don't mean getting dressed or like eating proper food or whatever, but like when you try and put yourself on that model of like productivity, it's not possible at the moment. No. Like, it's just not possible. So like, what else can you do for yourself? Like, investigate the new routine that you could develop that's specific to being in quarantine. Like, like, do you know what I mean? Like, that would be my advice. But it's very hard to take, because every day I slip back into going, no, I'm going to get up at 7 and I'm going to do it. And I'm like, oh, Shaun, like, let go of that. Like, maybe just catch up on your sleep. Maybe get up at 10. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, yeah.
I totally agree, Shaun. I totally agree.
That's it. It's hard. It's hard to know what to do.
Yeah. And every day. Yeah.
Yeah. Take every day for what it is. Yeah. Every day for what it is.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Shaun.
Brilliant. Thank you. That was fun.
I actually do feel better now after this.
So do I.
This is our first one, so it's a bit scary for me, but I feel much better now.
No, that was a pleasure. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for coming to see the show again. I really appreciate it. And hopefully I'll see you in the real world before not too long.
Yay!
Thanks, Fee.
Thank you, Shaun. Sending the love.